We're live. Oh my gosh! Can they see the? Can they see our faces?
They can.
Oh wow! Incredible. Usually we throw up the screen, right? The coming soon screen, the BRB screen. Right? Usually. Okay. Well, just not feeling it today then. Let's get some music going though.
Oh, it is.
It is.
Yeah.
I can't hear anything.
Are you listening to the stream? Can't hear it.
No, because then I would hear your.
Exactly.
I'll have to throw on my own music.
Oh yeah.
Jeez.
Is that Michael in general?
Yes, it is. Yep.
Michael, you're in our lobby now.
Hello,
by the way.
Michael.
Hello.
Hello. Can you see us?
Yes.
Hey, I cannot see you, but it is very good to hear from you.
Yeah, good to see and hear from you too. I don't have a option to turn on my video. Oh, now I do.
Okay. Give him permission.
There you go. Now you should be able to.
This is a lockdown, high security server. How's it going, dude? It's good to see you.
Good to see you too. It's going well. We're finishing up work on Party Pack 7. A couple small things left, and we passed submission on all platforms, which is amazing.
Was that the first try?
Yeah, on first try.
Wow.
We're 5 years running, I think, for passing on first submission. So
Wow.
I mean, insanely lucky, but we do have time in our schedule in case we fail cert ever. But so far it hasn't happened. I'm knocking on all the wood.
Awesome. Fantastic. Congrats.
Thanks.
Okay. Cool. All right. So you're back in Michigan. Is that right?
Yeah, I'm back living with my parents. Never thought I'd be here. I'm still paying rent for my apartment in Chicago because leases are from the devil. And yeah, work has been entirely remote since the first shutdown in Chicago, which I think was mid-March or so. Okay. So yeah, the transition to remote work has been crazy. I feel like we've handled it, all things considered, really well. But we're all doing a bunch of learning, basically, as everyone is.
Awesome. Well, it's super, super cool to have you back in the state. Is that the southeastern part of the state, west side, or?
I am here on the
Oh wow, northwest. All right.
Yeah, northwest, Traverse City, Michigan is
very cool.
It's a beautiful place in the summer.
It is. It is. Gosh, I can't remember where I read it, but I read that Traverse City has like it's one of the largest kind of getaway cities for startup founders from the Bay Area.
Yeah, there's a bunch of tech millionaires who love this town for some reason, and a bunch of them started buying homes recently.
Yeah,
up on the peninsula. If you ever want to take that drive on the peninsula and see all of the tech startup houses,
nice.
It's on Center Road, if you're wondering.
Awesome.
Well,
I know
Michael,
they have an incubator. Go ahead, Corbin. Go ahead.
If you get a chance to open up the stream, just in case anybody types any questions to you, there is a chat.
Oh, sure, I will do that.
They can type in there for you. They
say,
Austin, your audio is a little quiet, so can you turn up your mic at all? Let me try to turn it up as well.
I think you need to. You're broadcasting, so I think you need to turn it up on your end.
You can also manually adjust your audio, but we're pulling you up here to 120 and see how that.
Testing. Can everyone hear me?
That's a lot better.
Yeah, I got to hear it from chat. Chat, can you hear me?
I'm not good enough. Let's see how it is.
That's right.
Oh man.
Oh, awesome. Very cool.
Pull Michael up a little bit too. There we go.
Very cool. So Mike, I'm gonna have to pull it up really quickly, but I have something that I would like the community to see.
Oh yeah.
Because it is such an awesome thing. Like
Great.
even back in your undergrad days, you could tell it was gonna go well. This whole game dev thing, you know.
This whole this whole career path.
Yep, that's right. Let we probably won't begin the talk until about 10 minutes after. Give people Michigan time to hop on
yeah.
in, find
Classic.
the stream. Yep.
Something
Michigan
I've
time.
learned in
Go ahead.
something I've learned in the age of quarantine and digital meetings is that you need to start everything late. Everything needs to start late.
Yes.
Yes,
I can completely
right.
agree with that.
Oh, all right. Let's see. Mike, this is not about Jackbox. Are you working on anything in your spare time? Are you doing any hobby development? Do you have any time and energy for that?
Yeah, I have a game. I mean, in general, the answer is I'm a person who does not handle free time well. Like I say yes
Okay.
to everything. So
Oh, no.
I just have a bunch of stuff. But yeah, I have some side projects that I'm working on with a friend from Traverse City who's living in Seattle now, and it's like a super small Unity project, but it's super fast to make and super small is how we're trying to keep it. It's very, very tiny.
Awesome.
And even with that, like we have a Trello board. We wrote cards up with assignees. We were like totally
All right.
overdoing the production side of it.
It's the 494 process.
Yeah, it truly is. And of course, it's like ground to a halt. It's like that. The whole point of side project, as far as I'm concerned, is that you work on them when you're excited about them.
Yeah.
So for me, it's definitely one of those things I want to do in my free time, but. As Party Pack 7 kind of accelerated, obviously, all of that time I wanted to spend on Party Pack 7. So yeah, the side projects have definitely taken a backseat, but they're there. The Trello cards are still whimpering at me, asking to be moved to the next column.
Something that amazes me, and I can't wait to hear more about it. But the amount of games that Jackbox is able to put out with the frequency that you put them out and the quality you put them out at is just incredible.
The volume is insane, and
Yeah.
that is something I'll talk about in the talk a bit. It's just like the sheer quantity, and it's on the annual production cycle, which is also nuts. Yeah.
Okay.
Lots of ingredients.
So why don't we do this? I want to show everyone. I'll show my screen, and I think that I can get the audio going too, so we can get this fantastic narration going on. Ladies and gentlemen, if you're watching on Twitch, we're going to show you a special video game trailer from 2017. Let's make sure the audio is going to work. I think it will. Let me know if it doesn't. This is a game called Ghosted. It was created by one Michael Siciliano way back in 2017 for my game dev course, and it was a smash hit at the showcase. It was so much fun, just spectacular. So let's see if we can get it going here.
Yep, that's me. You're probably wondering how I got into this situation. It all started when my friend and I went in search of a spirit that will grant one wish every 100 years to whoever completes its challenge. The spirit, upset after being disturbed from his slumber, punished us. Even worse, another pair of explorers is in the same spot. Now we have to race them to complete the spirit's challenge of gathering hidden gems around the temple. We need that wish to bring me back to life. On the bright side, now I have awesome powers I can use to defend my partner and attack the other team, while he gets physical and collects the gems. Get Ghosted, December 2017.
All right. Oopsie. Let me go ahead and exit out. So that is. Wait, are we sharing the screen?
Yes, you are.
Okay, let me go ahead and stop. So this is right, a game you made in 2017. You made it in what, 6 or 7 weeks? So extremely fast turnaround. And then I think the week of the showcase, the game like wholesale changed. Its structure changed, the way you scored changed, if I recall.
Yeah, the game kind of consists of collecting those gems you saw in the trailer and returning them to we had altars, and I think in the trailer you saw the gem kind of float up, and that was like you scoring. It's essentially like a capture the flag, and the fundamental change was to change from a multi-flag model to a single flag model, where instead of having multiple gems hidden around the map that you find and then take back to one of many capture points, there is a single gem. There's one capture point for each team. So it's kind of a search for where the gem is hidden, and then once it's found, the game changes into a basic combat capture the flag kind of style, which led to a lot more interaction between players and also just a lot more exciting gameplay, especially for an environment like the showcase. But yes, that entire pivot happened in the last 7 days of the project.
Awesome.
It's definitely one of those things where like you find the fun,
yes,
perhaps late, but once you find that fun, you pivot the whole thing. There's actually a very relevant example from a Jackbox game as well that's actually not too far removed from thematically the same thing. In Party Pack 5, we had a game called Zeeple Dome where you fling yourself around an arena destroying aliens. And originally the game was a turn-based game. Everyone went one at a time, and then after every player flung themselves at these enemies, then the enemies move and attack, and then the cycle repeats. And it's almost like a puzzler at that point. Like strategically, what am I trying to do? How do I want to use my shot? How do other people's shots react? And then we made a pivot, I think about a month and a half before submission, where we changed it to a real-time game where there's no turns and people are just playing themselves constantly. And yeah, a very large pivot. And there was a moment where Mike Zuba, the lead engineer on that game, basically made a build that had this live updated version, and we had a play test, and everyone kind of sat there and we were like, it's just more fun. And you know, I credit Jackbox for not being afraid of handling those truths maturely and being like, cool, so we have tested and we know that this is the case, and we're going to, you know, divert resources from other games, make sure that, you know, the artists are supported and the engineers are supported, and no one's like crunching super hard to get this change in. And the game turned out much better for it. So yeah, very, very related, I think. Message, I think.
It's kind of a terrifying moment, isn't it? Where you realize, oh, fantastic, we found the fun. And then you look at the calendar and you're like, oh no, we gotta make that change. Oh God.
And another example is a game that I was the lead engineer on, Role Models. I think we found the fun a little late on that one. A lot of people like the game, and I've heard nothing but great things about it. In terms of like player numbers, it's still very successful by pretty much every metric. We did find stuff at the end of that's like, if we made a sequel of this game, we would do a lot of things differently. And that was but you know, we made the choice. We're going to commit to what we've done. We still think it's a fun game. And you know, I guess that's a time where we went the other way, even after maybe finding a little bit more fun with a variant of the gameplay.
Awesome. Cool. So Corbin, do you want to tell everyone kind of what this is about, what the structure is for this meeting?
So this meeting, we have a Q&A, yes, planned out, and we're gonna get a little.
Yeah, Michael, do you have a presentation or just Q&A?
Yeah, I have 32 slides.
Awesome.
Fantastic.
So let's go ahead and get
one
that
big
up.
spreadsheet. That's
awesome.
That's what I've got.
Okay, so go ahead and share your screen if you're not already. There's a button down there. Let us know if you don't have permission to.
You should. But yeah, so we're going to take a look at the PowerPoint. We're going to check that out first. Then when we get to the end, we'll do a Q&A. If you guys have any questions, start posting them in the chat. And I'll save all those questions up for at the end. We'll go through some of them. And then after that, we'll jump on over to Community Showcase, where we'll see some community projects that have been in the works lately.
Awesome.
Cool. And just so that I know, when is my time slotted to end, just so I definitely don't run over?
So we usually try to end around 8-ish, but it's not a hard 8 anymore because it's online and we're remote.
Of course.
Yep. All right. So, ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for joining us. Today we have an awesome guest, Michael Siciliano of Jackbox Games. out of Chicago. Jackbox is an awesome company. They've hired a few of our southeastern Michigan game devs in the last few years, which is really, really cool. Michael was a Wolverine, an undergraduate there. He taught under me as an IA of the EECS 494 course, and then did research as well. And I believe he met Jackbox Games through that research. Maybe we'll hear a little bit about that, but we have a spectacular speaker. I can't wait to see this presentation. Thank you so much, Michael.
Yeah, thanks for having me. It's great. I mean, I remember coming to IGDA meetings while I was a student, and I think actually the first meeting I went to is because Austin, you gave extra credit for going, which is what an incentive. But yeah,
that's
got
right.
me going. So there you go. And wow, now we're back. What a strange timeline we live in. So yeah, this talk is basically going to have 3 parts. It's going to have a part that talks about the history of Jackbox games and kind of how to find stability in a very tumultuous, or I don't know if that's the right word, just a very turbulent, I should say, turbulent market that is making games, and the kind of like windy path that Jackbox took to get there. So that's the first part. Second part is about me and how I got into the industry and just advice from my lived experience of applying to studios and doing in-person interviews and take-home assessments and all these things, and some things I've gleaned from that. And then finally, a bit on game design and how I go about designing games and how Jackbox goes about pumping out just game after game after game after year. So without further ado, I am Michael Siciliano. I'm a software engineer at Jackbox Games, as Austin said, and this first part of this is history, which is everyone's favorite subject. So I'd actually like to start with the status quo. These are all the games that Jackbox has made since 2014, and this actually doesn't include any of the Party Pack 7 games, and some like brief metrics. So this would be 38 games since 2014. 25 new IPs, so we have some sequels in there, and 430 million game sessions. And I think it's easy to look at this like end state and assume that we knew what we were doing the whole time, and that this is like success is a result of decisions we made because we were smarter than others. And I don't think that that's actually true. And I think it kind of gives into some survivor bias about, what it's like to actually be sustainable in this market. So I'd actually like to go back a bit from present day to all of the iterations that Jackbox Games has had over the course of its history. So it started as Learn Television in 1989 with a product called That's a Fact Jack, which was an educational game. Rebranded in 95 to Jellyvision, where its lead product was You Don't Know Jack, which was this irreverent trivia game that was sold on CD-ROMs. There's tons of Jack games, sports spin-offs, and sequel upon the sequels that were made between 97 about 2002, and Jackbox did not transition from the CD-ROM market terribly well. So once CD-ROM sales started to drop off, Jackbox also started to lose a lot of revenue. There's kind of a dark period in here from 2002 to 2008 where the company basically was dormant, and restarted in 2008 under the branch of Jellyvision Games, and then renamed in 2013 to Jackbox Games. At this point, is an entirely independent company from Jellyvision Games. Jellyvision now makes software for figuring out your benefits, which is, again, just odd things. What I will say here, though, is that since the rebranding or restarting in 2008, again, not making You Know Jack, not selling CD-ROMs, the way that a lot of this worked was there was a partnership with THQ, a publishing deal in 2011, and that was to publish You Know Jack. And that was sold at a $30 price point and didn't end up working out very well for Jackbox. At this point, there were a couple funding rounds through venture capitalists, and they invested in Jackbox Games around this point, 2011-ish, with the intention of social and mobile games. And there's several games that people might not be as aware of that Jackbox, games and products that Jackbox made in this period with this initial round of investing. The first is You Don't Know Jack for Facebook, which I think was 2012. And what else? We got Clone Booth, which was a mobile app on Android and iOS, and whatever the Amazon App Store was also had this. And a mobile game called Word Putts, which was like a Scrabble putt mix game. These are all before my time, but that ended right around 2013. And at 2014, I should say, this was basically a lot of failing really fast. None of these products were particularly successful. Some of the reason of that is that all three of these products were in the freemium model. But for the most part, for You Don't Know Jack and Word Putts, for example, your content isn't evergreen. Like the thing that will get you coming back to You Don't Know Jack, for example, is the trivia. And you can play through all of the trivia. And people run into this with the games that we have out in the wild. But if you're playing the game for free, it's hard to convert people to a premium user because they probably don't want to play that much You Don't Know Jack on a daily basis. You can probably get your fix with a couple questions. And because of that, and because it costs money to create new content, that's the big thing. It just doesn't work as like these games, our games, don't work as well in a freemium model. If you're doing something like a match 3 game or any kind of like arcade style procedural generation arcade game, that stuff works a lot better in freemium models because you don't have to invest money in creating new content. So the content is essentially evergreen at that point. You don't need to put additional investment in to keep players playing. And that's one of the reasons why these games didn't work well for Jackbox and this model. And so lots of failing. And in 2014, there was a new model. And that model was what has become the standard Jackbox playing experience, which is a website on any browser, and you connect to a room by just going to a URL on your phone or tablet or any device and playing your game. The service that we use on the back end is called Blobcast or eCast that helps this thing run. And that kind of led to a explosion of games since 2014. And I should say another thing that really helped with this and should not be cannot be overstated is the ID at Xbox and self-publishing. So back in 2011, we had a publishing deal with THQ, and all of these games have been self-published. That is a huge difference, and the market is just fundamentally different now that indie studios can self-publish their games. Again, it's kind of like, and I will not be the first to say this, publishing your own games is kind of screaming into a void, but it is a great opportunity for companies to just hold on to so much more of their own revenue. So let's see. We're at 2014, and I think one of the important things to talk about here is the way that this worked and the way that we got to Fibbage in 2014 was being in a position where any of the prior titles weren't a make or break release. And the singular important thing here is that you have enough cash. You can't run out of cash. It sounds obvious to say, but you can't ever be in a situation where you need a specific release to go well. And I have some slides later on how that relates to indie development. But for us, that meant that like we didn't need Word Putts to be a massively successful game in order to make the next game. some of that is like keeping your studio small or not renting out space, using incubators if you have them, or just working remotely. I mean, in the age of COVID, that basically just means working from home. But again, I'll have some slides later about how that basically works. And in a future, or in an additional, I guess, to the point of we don't always know, we can't always predict the future. Like, not all of these decisions are made with like some foresight that is not available to us. I think it's worthwhile to talk about like the bump that has happened since COVID, especially in the gaming space. So this is our player growth from 2014, when we made Fibbage, and 2019. So this is over 100 million players for last year, for example. And this is 2014 to today. This is actually just through June, where we had over 110 million players just in March through June of 2020. And this is a situation where, again, it's like we were not in a situation where we were counting on this to happen. But also, like, you can't predict all of these things. Like, just as easily, some act of God could have caused us to go the other direction in terms of player numbers. So I have more graphs, which I love. This one I think is remarkable. In general, for Jackbox, our biggest days of the year are Thanksgiving and New Year's. It's when people are throwing parties and playing our games. And in this bottom graph, you see a large spike around Thanksgiving, and then the biggest single spike for New Year's. You'll see Christmas just to the left of it. And in March, this is all 2020. In March, you see that just our normal weekend play counts started to exceed our highest ever days. Again, just, there's no way to predict this stuff. There's really no way to predict this stuff. And oh yeah, there we go. Labels for Thanksgiving, New Year's Eve. And I think like in there's kind of a dichotomy here between the business acumen and the engineering acumen. So we didn't plan for this. We weren't making business decisions assuming that we were going to have an influx in users or traffic. But in engineering, lacking that assumption can actually be detrimental to your architecture. So these are examples of rooms created over time, and these outages that we had once we started to have this many users. We fixed a lot of fun bugs. People on Twitter loved to tell us that the servers were down, which is very helpful. And that's actually one of the, we do have a bunch of automated monitoring, but tweets are often actually ways that we track down bugs. And in engineering sense, planning for the worst case, planning for the worst case is kind of always the truth, but assuming influxes of users is only good in one direction, which is engineering, which we weren't doing. But luckily, we have since strengthened our engineering or our server architecture a good amount. I kind of want to take a step back and talk about just how this is more applicable in a wide sense and less specifically to us. There's a great GDC talk by Jake Burkett on sustainable indie development. The title is How to Survive in Game Dev for 11 Years Without a Hit. I think part of it is coming to terms with this first fact, which is you're not special, nor is your game, and you'll never ship a hit. But it comes with kind of like this nicer philosophy of just being able to take a lot of shots, affording yourself the opportunity to fail quickly and often. And eventually, one of your things will succeed. And Jake Burkett gets into these indie sustainability tips. And the one that I would highlight is, the one that I would highlight here is, it's just 2 slides forward. Don't spend all your money on a big game and to make small games. You can't put yourself in a situation where you need like make or break to have this release go well. And that's certainly the case for us. We kind of shelter ourselves even within the party pack model. Like we can have games that might not have driven sales in of themselves, but within the 5 games of a party pack, it's still a good value for the consumer. And I mean, people can have the opinion that the party pack is just a bad deal, but it's a hard one to justify. Like 5 games for $20 or $25, and especially when they go on sale as often as they do, it's pretty a good valuation, and it helps us try more experimental stuff. You can do things kind of outside of the box. I think Zeepeldome is a good example, and still have a really strong pack. And like so many people, like it's great on the developer side. Each game is someone's favorite, and so many, like, you get messages talking about, like, this couple who wanted to have like Zeepeldome as part of their marriage ceremony and stuff. And even if like Zeepeldome is not the most popular game, it has really dedicated people, and that's, I think, one of the strengths of just diversification in your in the games you release, and basically making enough shots that you're bound to hit some of them. So I think that's a good chunk of Jackbox history, and the next step is kind of my backstory, or how I got into games. And in a very similar philosophical stance to release a bunch of games, and some of them are bound to be successful. How you get hired in games is to apply everywhere. Spreadsheet incoming, yes. So this is the spreadsheet of all the places that I applied while trying to get a job in game development. And I would not have been anywhere without this thing. It's kind of daunting to look at. I applied to 81 studios, or not 81 studios, 81 positions. A lot of them are Ubisoft and EA, because those companies are huge. And I tracked a bunch of data. Yeah, what were you saying, Austin?
I see new record for longest reply in all caps. Yes. On the right.
Yeah, so there's a bunch of really interesting data in here that maybe deserves its own little breakout, but some of the things are just totally ignore the years experience required. Like, just ignore it. Just apply. There's no correlation between the years of experience listed on the job listing and whether or not you hear back, positive or negative. It's all nonsense. The other thing I will say is, I mean, don't apply for a senior or principal position. Like, if that's the title without having any experience, that's a different thing. But if like it's if it's an entry level title and they ask for 3 years experience, just apply. The other thing, what my favorite metric from this is the delta between when I applied and when I heard any kind of response. I think my 2 favorites were Bethesda, which took 243 days to reply to my application. And yeah, what was this new record for longest reply? 443 days from Ubisoft San Francisco between my application and when hearing back. And that was the Ubisoft San Francisco one was a form rejection letter. Like, there was nothing to it. I think more remarkable maybe is that the Bethesda reply for Austin that took 243 days was an interview. Like, they wanted to interview me at that point, which at that point I was already working at Jackbox, because you can't expect applicants to wait 243 days before hearing back. But I think it's just one of those things where you can't put yourself in a position where, like, you apply to your favorite studio and are waiting to hear back, because it might take over a year to like, it'll take 243 days to hear a yes. Like, that's insane to me. You can't put yourself in that position. So the approach just has to be just a shotgun approach. Just do it everywhere. I think some other things that I think will really help with this, here, I'll go back to this presentation briefly to talk about this conceptualization of like, are you a person or are you a brand? This is Polygon producer Brian David Gilbert has some great material on it, but it is important to build your online presence. A LinkedIn, an online portfolio with playable demos, and have a Twitter. You don't have to tweet often, but some companies like to see that you are in fact a person with wants and desires. So I thought it would be good to just kind of go over because I should say, most applications at this point are asking for LinkedIn URLs in the form. So like they are just expecting that you have it at this point. I will show you what mine looks like. So in general, just one of the big things is just get a headshot, pay for someone to do it, or have a friend with a camera. One of those two things. And I like have some stuff on here, like I do list my experience. This is all data that you'll probably have to input into whatever job application form you're doing. But the big thing is you have a link to your portfolio on LinkedIn. And wherever this goes, you can, I have like the URL siciliano.works, which ends up forwarding to this Carbon Made, which is like a free, I'm not paying for any of this. Carbon Made is just like a free portfolio builder. There's a bunch of them. You feel free to use Carbon Made, but there's so many. And it's marginal gains between all of them. The most important thing is that it's somewhere and people can read it. So you have this online portfolio. I should update this. I mean, I'm not applying anywhere at the moment. I should update this with my Jackbox games. That would be a thing I would do before I apply places. But the most important thing here is that you have playable demos. So for example, this is the first project that you do in 494, recreation of Zelda. It has some screenshots, explains like what was my role on the project, when it happened, like a brief blurb about it, and then a button to play the game. You don't have to download it. You don't have to worry about maintaining Mac and Windows builds. Like I do have some games that I haven't put WebGL builds of, but if you're working in Unity, you can just do WebGL players. For some reason, UMich is still, if you look at this URL, UMich is still hosting this despite the fact that I'm no longer a student. But this is huge. The fact that you can go onto my portfolio and like play a game without downloading it.
Mike, show us your custom stage, Mike.
Oh yeah, sure.
I can't remember what your custom mechanic was.
I think if I remember correctly, I just copied Nazi zombies from Call of Duty.
Oh, cool.
And yeah, I'll do that.
Quick question: like when you took the course, was it required that you post the game online? Because it now is.
It wasn't. But by the time I was teaching the course, it was.
Gotcha. Okay.
Which is a great change. But yes, so this project is nice because it has the literal recreation of the first of Eagle, the first dungeon in Legend of Zelda, but it also has a custom stage that shows like a bit more game design. Like there's a whole currency and buy mechanic, and what am I doing here? Z-A shift. There we go. You can buy weapons. It's a loot box. It's Call of Duty Zombies, y'all. It's fun. The most important thing here is that you have playable projects. I think this one is still playable, unless something broken links. The bane of everyone's existence. But what I'll say is that like in reviewing people's applications, which I'm now on the other side of, playing their games is the biggest thing. The other thing during the application process is cover letters, and like studios differ on how much these matter. Hopefully you go to a studio where they do. I guess that's kind of it. It sucks to write an individual cover letter for every single studio, but I mean I did it. Here's all the cover letters that I wrote for all of the applications. This is like, it's based off of a template, I should say. Like you should write a template that has, let's see, Blizzard. Sure. Hope I didn't say anything disparaging or what have you. Cover letter should be a single page, and it should have the same kind of contact info. Cross Street and Arbor. Should have the same kind of contact info that you have at the top of your resume. And the basic format of my cover letter is that I had, talking about my experience, some projects that I made, but there's the first and last paragraph are templated out specifically for me to write custom paragraphs talking about why I liked that studio, why I'm interested in what that studio is doing. And honestly, that is enough to feel custom for whatever the position that you're applying for is like right up top, showing that you wrote it specifically for the company, and then tying that back at the end saying, yes, remember, I am applying for, Blizzard, blah, blah, blah. In my spreadsheet tracking, I think I only once incorrectly put the company at the end. Didn't hear back from that one. But you miss 100% of the shots you don't take. Again.
Do you remember which company that was for, Mike?
Yeah, it was one of the Ubisoft.
Okay. Hey Corbin, is Michael still there? Uh-oh. Oh no. He left us with this spreadsheet full of hilarious information.
Yeah, I was gonna say
So
that
we can
take a screenshot, plan things out. No, I think he'll reconnect here in a minute.
Things in your cover letter.
Hey.
Oh, Michael's back. We lost you for about 30 seconds, Mike.
We did, yeah.
Oh, what was the last thing? Something probably about.
We were laughing about Ubisoft not getting the wrong company in your cover letter.
Yes.
Yes. Companies differ on how much these matter. Also, for the odds that it gets read by a real human is pretty low. If you're applying to a really large company, you're probably going to have to get through whatever their automated grading of applicants system is in order for a human to see it. But once you do get past that stage, it does matter. For a smaller company like Jackbox, we read every single cover letter. Every single engineer reads every single cover letter. So it's an extremely important thing to look at what the application listing asks for if they ask for specific things in the cover letter. That's like an instant disqualification as far as like we ask for like, what's your favorite game? Why do you want to work here? Like those two things. And like if they don't answer either of those questions, you're out. So if people ask for specific things, that's great. I mean, it makes it easier for you to write, is the way I think about it. So that's a bunch of word vomit about application. Track it somehow, just the other thing is that this helps because it reminds you to follow up if you have a specific contact. So like some of these, like I applied to Volition, I emailed a specific person. I got a rejection from them, but and it was like, in 8 days? Thank you for quick rejections. If it had gone for a month and a half and I hadn't heard anything back, I would send a reminder email. Don't send reminder emails to form submission email addresses or whatever. You don't need to. But having some way of keeping track of all this stuff, because you should apply to a bunch of places, is, I think, essential. I'm sure there's probably a service that maybe does some of this application process, but spreadsheets work. Cool. So that's how I handled job application and applying and kind of like getting in. I guess specifically what worked, like just some other tips. Do have playable demos. At this point, you're still going to have to practice, coding interview style questions if you're trying to be a programmer. So cracking the coding interview, these style or code fights, similar websites that have you. It's essentially programming trivia. I have lots of opinions on it, but you still have to jump through that hoop for the most part if you're planning on being a software engineer, especially an entry-level person. People will ask you to solve, minutia and trivia about languages or like syntax or, things that, or just like algorithmic thinking. It's the stuff that I think people say, but just to reiterate that is still important. Increasingly, I am seeing people shift towards take-home assessments. I think most of the times I heard back from applications, there was like a Visual Studio solution with some example code and complete these like implement these classes or implement this function, those kind of things, which you can usually do on your own time, which is nice. And then you will talk about your solutions to those problems if they advance you further in the interview. So those are all good. Cracking the coding interview, I mean, it's a different muscle than I would say like your normal programming work, but it is something that you have to build if you want to be successful for the most part in these interview styles. So that's chapter 2 of how I got here. And the last thing I want to go over is kind of just like Jackbox's approach to making games and some lessons that I've learned making games. So I came up with this game called Talking Points. I pitched it. When did I pitch it? In February. And it's greenlit and it's in Party Pack 7. There's some early look builds out there on the YouTubes. This is an these are the games we make, ladies and gentlemen. In Talking Points, you and your friends take turns giving short speeches that revolve entirely around responding to slides that you haven't seen in advance. If it's a text slide, you read it out loud. If it's a picture slide, you say whatever comes to mind. You improvise. That's the word. In addition, you'll take turns being the assistant or one of the speakers. While the speaker is speaking, the assistant is picking the next slides for the talk. This is a screen grab from Smosh, who did an early look of the game. So this is from an early build. This art is not finalized. General disclaimer. But I would like to kind of go over basically how this process works at Jackbox, but also just like how some lessons learned in a general case about ideation. So Jackbox production from 2014 to earlier this year. We're still on an annual cycle, 5 games per year in a party pack. Lots of paper and pencil testing, rapid prototyping, focus testing things, and then you have a green light process for each game idea, and then production and shipping. And the way that this worked for Talking Points, to bring it back to this presentation game, and I think I'm actually just going to sit on this slide while talking about it. The basic premise of the game is that you get slides of a TED style presentation that you haven't seen before. And that worked really well in a paper format. The first pitch of the game was actually, so the game got pitched twice, and the first time got pitched in December, and then again in February. In December, it did not get greenlit, and we continued testing and iterating on it. But the basic format of you are going to take slides and give a presentation based on those slides worked just as well on paper as it did before, like building any tech or using any amount of artist time or engineering time, any of that. I just printed off a bunch of stock photos and put them underneath an iPhone on an arm mount that was a user in a video conference call that was on the TV in whatever room we were playtesting. Super low tech, but it worked. And it took me, I don't know, 30 minutes to print out the photos and set up the phone arm. Like, that was it. And we were testing a game. One of the big things that we found out in the first pitch is that it's a bit too much for the speaker who is improvising based on these slides to also be trying to build whatever their talk is. And also, if you build your presentation before the talk happens, people end up getting too invested in their own talk and feel bad when it goes poorly. So the 2 changes we made were to A, make it so that presentations are made on the spot in real time, and B, make the person making the presentation not the person giving the presentation. So this idea of the assistant who picks the slides for the person who is speaking in real time. This alleviated 2 things. First, it made it so that these 2 things serviced one goal, which was people felt less connected to the presentation they were giving and less bad if they made mistakes. And in the improv world, this is basically you creating like a space where a failure is okay. And all of that happened on paper. And like over the course of a couple weeks, iterating on like, should we make the talk beforehand? Should we do it in person? Who's the person pulling the stock photos from this stack of paper and handing it to the person speaking? all of that is very fast iteration that you can't do if you're investing a bunch of time and resources into your build. So that's kind of how this iteration process worked. And to talk about it relative back to these indie sustainability top tips, I think there's 4 things of the top 7 that kind of get at this similar idea. Spend as little as possible. Don't waste money on a big game to make small games. Be able to weather failures, line up the next thing, and make lots of prototypes. The idea is that you want to fail fast and fail often. And for talks, like the idea was, for talking points, I should say, the idea was like, I had this idea, and I should definitely say that like I was not the only person working on this, especially between the first pitch and the second pitch. Like a group of people at Jackbox coalesced around this idea. But the idea is that you're failing often. So pitching, a pitch in December for Jackbox is on the early side, but we pitched, we failed, we iterated, and then we succeeded in the second pitch. And it's a good case study in this kind of philosophy about failing and normalizing failing and, being okay with that. If there's a running theme through this, that's, I think, what I want it to be. This is just a slide talking kind of a bit about, Jackbox production since quarantine. We're all in this state now, where we are playtesting the games on Zoom or Meet or, golly gosh darn it, we have way too many video conferencing software. Discord does seem to be the best one so far, but this is also how people are playing our games now, so it's good. And the rise in player counts that we've seen are mostly people playing remotely. But adjusting that, it's the same philosophy. Like the play tests that we do internally are still operated in much the same way. And the idea of like trying stuff and seeing what sticks and throwing a lot at the wall, that's all still there. So that's all I have. Yeah, open for questions. Fail fast, fail early. That's it.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Michael. Fantastic. Very, very fun talk.
Yeah, that was an
Chat,
excellent talk.
do you have any questions?
Yeah, there were some questions posted early asking about interviews and portfolios. But what's cookie life like in real life?
So Tom, okay, honestly, the first time I was in a meeting with Tom after starting the company was very odd because I was hearing him say things that were not jokes. So I had to do a little bit of work in my own head to get to a point where I didn't assume all the comments that Tom were giving me were like about to have some turn at the end where there was a punchline. But Tom is great. And yeah, I mean, at this point, he is really good, I think, especially at picking out like a second level reason why a game or a mechanic is fun. It's like, oh, this is happening because of XYZ. And he was one of the early fans of the Talking Points game and helped a lot getting that game off the ground in terms of, believing that we could force people to improvise like that. There's so much. I feel like improvisation is almost a dirty word in some groups. Like, the first pitch of Talking Points, we had, oh gosh, I hope they don't mind me saying this. In the first pitch of Talking Points, we had the founder of Jackbox Games sitting in, and I remember him turning to me, Harry Gottlieb, and he turned to me before the playtest during the pitch started, and he's like, "This isn't an improv thing, right? Because I don't improvise." And I was like, "Oh, you'll be fine. You'll be fine." Knowing full well it was an improv game, and then lo and behold, he killed it. His presentation was extremely funny. I forget what the talk was about. If I remember correctly, it was about someone's left nipple or something. But the point is that Tom helped a lot with kind of getting off the ground of like, yeah, we can force people to improvise. Like, people will be okay with it and they'll have fun. So yes, great to work with.
That's
Cookie.
Awesome. There was another question asking why your outlets are upside down. I feel like that's an important talking point.
I've just had to respond to this earlier today. The answer is that this house uh, was built by a man who did everything wrong.
That's a fair answer.
And so I am living at my childhood home. This is not the room that I grew up in. In the room I grew up in, I did actually change out all the outlets because it did bother me. So I I fault you not at all for asking such a question, but I haven't gotten to that point mentally where I tear out the outlets in this room after moving it out.
Awesome. We had another question asking, how much experience did you have before you were hired, and were you able to work an internship before being hired?
Yeah, wow. Kicking myself for not talking about it. Internships are great. I had an internship at Jackbox before getting hired full time. Internships are amazing. Before that internship, I had the projects on my portfolio from 494, and that was pretty much it. I did not have any game development or even professional programming experience before getting that first internship at Jackbox. One of the biggest things is that they played my Zelda demo for my application. Like while I was on the phone call in the interview, I was like someone made some comment. I was like, wait, what? And he's like, oh, we're playing your Zelda game right now. And I was like sweating, like, oh gosh, I hope nothing bad happens. Like, I hope they don't find any bugs. But they didn't, and they gave me an internship. Like, that is, and they like talked to me about like, oh, what were some of the challenges that you had over the course of this project? Have those answers ready, and yeah, that like, at some point someone has to take a chance on you. I think the chance that happened was Jackbox giving me an internship, knowing nothing about me except the projects I had in my portfolio. But all of that entire portfolio webpage, my LinkedIn, cover letter, templates, all that application tracking stuff, I was doing that for the internship round as well. There's a different spreadsheet of my internship applications. So having all of that stuff lined up and cohesive and making sense and data up to date is really important because people do look at it. And then once you're at the internship, you just have to, be enthusiastic and willing to learn. And that's basically, I applied for a full-time position. Jackbox opened up after that. So that's the story there.
Yeah, I think it's so important. I know that you do as well, Austin. We try to tell students all the time, put your schoolwork on there. You have
Yep.
nothing, put something. It's always good to have outside projects, but not everybody has the time for that. Having something there is better than nothing.
Yeah, I've never looked at an application and played a game and then thought worse of them because the game wasn't up to like some standard in my head. Like it's just not a reaction, or it's not the frame of reference I view applications with, where it's like, what are you trying to do? Make games? Like shame on you. Like just no one does that. That's not a personality trait. And if it is a personality of the trait, if it is a personality trait of the person viewing your application, you don't want to work there. That's the other thing is that like, there's a lot of at this point there's a lot of game studios, and finding somewhere that you want to be and they also want you to be there, like it will happen eventually. Uh, Luckily, I found it pretty quickly, but and I am very grateful, seriously. But you know, don't try to present yourself in a way that is inauthentic, because then you'll end up with people being interested in you for wrong reasons. I think a lot of that comes through in your cover letter. Try to be personal, like show who you are in your cover letter. Write in a voice that shows, a bit of your personality. Like, what are your interests? What are your hobbies that aren't games? Don't feel like you need to really prove that you are dedicated to this big singular thing. People are interested in other things beside games, and it's hugely important to the success of any studio or company to have a diverse set of interests. And yeah, having hobbies and stuff outside of games is great, and talk about it in your cover letter. Even just a sentence is great.
Yeah, no, that stuff's phenomenal. We had another question from a viewer, Rover Under, said, I love that Jackbox Play with Your Phones format lets you do neat things like beta test new games with viewers on Twitch. How has the community interactivity and outreach helped with development?
It helps a ton. I mean, one of the most concrete ways is like, I guess it still happens in a post-COVID world where we have people where we can just do external play tests with fans who sign up for a mailing list. Like there's a mailing list play test, I think once a week on Wednesdays, once we're in the heat of development, where we bring people in. Well, in the pre-COVID times, we bring people in and give them like beer and pizza, and they would play through all of the party pack games, and we'd get feedback super early with like fresh faces every time. And also like specifically for like Twitch viewers, and especially for early look builds, if we can get like an early look person playing the game live on Twitch, actually interacting with the audience mechanics, that's great. Like so much of that stuff has been informed by Twitch and streaming, and it's it is because of the community. And yeah, that stuff is all so valuable for us building the best game possible.
That's awesome. Austin, do you have a question?
Nope, don't think so.
It's a very awesome presentation. I really appreciate you going into depth about the tracking all of your interviews through a spreadsheet.
Yes.
I honestly thought I was one of the few crazy people who did that. So when I saw that, I was like, yes, because I just had a conversation with my students about that, and
I think it's I mean, there must be people who don't do it, but I can't imagine not. I just can't like. There's no. I don't. How would you even? You just send out all your applications and you wait for emails back, I guess. What I don't.
I actually started because I sent out an application to a company, forgot I did it in the middle of the night, and then like a week later got a phone call, answered it, and was like caught completely off guard because they wanted to talk then. I was like, oh my god.
Yep. Even just keeping track of like what companies am I still waiting to hear back from.
Mm-hmm.
You know, that's like a very basic thing that you do need to be able to do.
Yeah, Nathan
Mike
said it helps the rejection to have a spreadsheet like that as well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I was going to ask Mike, like, does kind of structuring your application process, does keeping track of all the data, keeping track of rejections, does that kind of take the sting out of the rejections a little bit? Does that make it easier to keep going, keep discipline?
Like, like, especially when I was starting out, you just can't have an ego about yourself. Like there's no reason to have an ego about like be confident in. Well, I guess there's two sides of this. You should be confident in your abilities. And when you're in an interview, you should never misrepresent what your ability set is. Don't ever say that you can do a thing that you can't. Such a surefire way to get in a hole. But at the same time, just know that like all of the like a lot of people want to be in games, and you're gonna just get a lot of no's. And yeah, just like I guess the spreadsheet helped me from a very early stage of the application process. Like none of these are same day rejections, but there's a lot of second day rejections. There's a lot of twos in the delta. Like it doesn't take long before you start getting a bunch of like no's. And which is, I think, yeah, it's like, I guess, I don't know. At that point, I had one internship on my application, so I wasn't, thinking that I was going to get a bunch of yeses. I had shipped a game, so there was something to that, but it totally normalizes it. Totally normalizes failure. Again, normalizing failure, like failure as a thing that is like not just part of the process, but literally necessary for growth.
Yeah.
Like if you're not failing, that means you're not attempting to reach your maximum potential, right? Like you need that as part of the process. Otherwise, you are not pushing yourself. So reach too high, because you'll reach for the clouds, you'll land on the mountain. What's the phrase? Yeah.
Excellent.
So something like that.
Excellent. Thank you. All right. Do we have any final questions? Otherwise, we will move on to the show and tell segment. All right. Michael, thank you so much. It's so great to see you again. We're very proud of
Yeah.
you.
Yeah, thank
know.
you so much for having me and listen to me blather.
Yeah, thanks for giving this talk. Really appreciated
Yes.
it.
Thank you. Take care, Mike.
Thanks. You too.
Okay. So we're gonna take a short 5-minute break, and then we'll get back into it and start up with the community showcase. So we will be back at we'll 8:10. Put a 7-minute break there. Give some people time to get some stuff done. And we'll start back on at 8:10.
Awesome. See you then, everyone. So let's. I'm gonna. Okay, we got Jason in the room.
to go. Can you hear me now, Austin? No, I'm still muted. Can you hear me now?
I can hear you.
Perfect, perfect. I was like, can I hear? Okay.
Well, can you hear me?
I can.
'Cause I couldn't hear your voice at all.
Oh, okay. It must have been on me. I will mute.
I'm not sure. I'm not sure where John Wolf is. All right, ladies and gentlemen, if John Wolf is in the crowd, please go to the IGDA Ann Arbor Discord server. Otherwise, you're not presenting today. Okay. First up, we have Jason Eaton, who's going to present on multiplayer cloud gaming portal. That is pretty exciting. Can't wait to see it.
Hello?
Hey, Jason.
Oh, I'm heard. Okay. Am I up? Are we going?
Yeah.
We're
have
not
a-
going quite yet.
Okay,
We can't see you.
Oh, right. Okay.
We are live, however, so we can hear you, and so can the stream.
Okay, that's fine.
Okay. Jason, do you have?
Alrighty.
Do you wanna share your screen or?
Yeah, I'm gonna end up sharing my screen.
Okay. So, ladies and gentlemen, this is the show and tell. Every one of our presenters, and we currently have 5, has 5 minutes to show us anything they want and talk about anything they want, and then 5 minutes for Q&A from the chat. And then we move on. So, Jason, are you ready?
I am.
Okay, I'll give you a 60-second warning, all right? 3, 2, 1, go.
Alrighty. I've actually showed this off a few times. I haven't really changed that much. The biggest thing that I've done is I completely refactored the code to make it extremely easy to read and work with. Like, it's getting so easy that I'm just like changing lots of stuff. Oh crap! All right. So I'm gonna. Oh shoot. I'm not logged into Twitch. I can't give the link.
You want to share your
It's
screen for
fine.
us as
I
well?
wasn't really gonna. I can give it in a little bit, but that's not really what I wanted to show anyway. I was gonna actually show something else. It's okay. I don't need other players right now. I have too many things I'm clicking here. So why do I share my screen? Okay, share screen. Go live. You got my screen yet?
I do. I do.
Okay.
Oh gosh.
So
Shared your.
this is what I showed off before.
Hold on. You shared the wrong screen.
Oh, what?
You shared the wrong screen.
You shared the wrong screen.
Oh, did I?
Yeah,
What
you
I share?
shared
You
your
shared
Discord.
your Discord.
Oh, did I? Well, I
I
tried to share everything.
Share your
Share
desktop
your
browser.
desktop browser.
Well, I tried to share my entire screen.
Hmm.
Oh, you're right. I did click the wrong thing. Can I just? Oh, okay. Here we go. That is what I wanted to do. So if I had the link, other people could join, but you know. So really, what I've done is I made this a lot easier to debug. Like you can actually see the trailing images behind everything. The transparent things is like the official state of the game, and then the solid colors are the fast forwarded predicted state. So I had a big bug in it before that I actually fixed. I'm really happy about. So now it actually works as if you are the frame that you press the button is the exact frame that it feels like you're playing in the exact frame you press the button. Like I finally got it like perfectly synced up. There was one syncing error. I blamed Unity. It wasn't Unity's fault.
You got to post this so we can play it. Maybe during the Q&A.
I know. I didn't log into Twitch. That was a mistake. So I during the questions I might log in, but that's not. I didn't want to show it. I actually have other things to show. I actually have a game design in mind finally. Like I've been bumping around with lots of different ideas, but like I have the underlying code is there now. Like I don't have to debug it. I don't have to keep making it better. It actually works. So I've actually been taking the next step and messing with, and this is interesting too, because you can see the mouse movement. The trailing one is like the delayed state. And then the other one is like the predicted state of where it's going to be at that time. But now I have some physics engines going in with in this lockstep demo. So I'm actually connected to the server right now. Like if somebody else came in here, they could actually like mess around with this. I just got this done today, so I didn't have it really uploaded. But I have lots of ideas for just like kicking out some games. So I'll probably show that next month, hopefully. Here, let's see if I can I won't be able to log into Twitch. Here, I'm gonna stop sharing my screen.
Yeah, 60 seconds.
Okay. You know what? I'm just going to try and get that logged in so I can send it. Actually, you know what? I can send it to you guys on Discord. You guys can send it. Okay, sounds good. That is the fastest way to do it, I think. So general.
He left. Okay.
Rip.
I think he
Oh,
misclicked.
we clicked the wrong button.
I didn't click the
General
wrong
text
button.
channel.
I didn't click general chat. I clicked general
Lobby.
general lobby. So there it
Nice.
is. So if one of you guys could just copy and paste that in there, just so I don't have to log in.
Gotcha. Yep, it's in there.
All right. Everyone, jump in. Click that link in the chat, all right? Everyone jump in so we can put this technology through its paces. Room 0, right?
Yeah, just room 0.
Okay, that is it. That is 5 minutes. So now we have 5 minutes for Q&A. Chat, if you have any questions for Jason on this technology, on what he plans to do, any question at all, you've got 5 minutes to ask, okay? Go.
Room 0.
Yeah, Jason, this is such cool technology, and we see it develop and get more and more impressive every week. I'm waiting for that week or that month when we see one of our local indie studios is using that technology in a real deal product.
I mean, I think people are already doing some of this stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, this is just the next logical step for the Good Game Peace Out engine. I mean, it's actually really simple. It turns out to be like one page of code. It's just like, I mean, basically what I'm doing with this is kind of breaking down like what's the bare minimum I need to make a game that actually runs right. And so I have that physics engine. That physics engine is literally like one function that I just apply in a very like clever way. Because I've been doing some physics engines for a while, and a lot of it is, there's lots of stuff that's just sort of like overkill. I mean, the beauty of this engine that makes me so happy is that I'm going to be designing a game now, but I'm going to get to ignore networking. I get to completely ignore the whole networking thing at the beginning of my design and have a game almost completely done without even thinking about networking the way I'm doing it. So like that, then I just going to focus on the game, and people can play it.
Very cool. Very cool. I'm definitely excited to see what you're able to. It's very interesting.
Yeah, I mean, it'd be nice if I had like an artist or something, then I could really make something. But I think I'm gonna do something crazy with those ASCII characters, just something wild.
Yeah.
It's more like minimal, like kind of like N or N plus, just like kind of minimalistic, but then has really nice motion and physics going on.
Yeah.
Yeah. So if you Jason, like do you have any plans to build up a pile of cash, a budget? Because you
I have a pile of cash.
Well, no, not a big pile, but just some savings, right?
Because I have savings. I could like quit my job right now and be okay for the next 2 or 3 years.
Well, I mean, if you want an artist to, a great artist to help you out, hey, throw them some money. There are plenty of fantastic freelancers. You'll be seeing some a little bit later. I'll show off some art, but yeah, don't be afraid to do that. It can really, really make a game pop.
I have a question here. What advantage does the lockstep stuff have over the framework like Photon? Well, that's the thing is Photon doesn't actually Photon just kind of gives you the rooms and joining. I don't know what it does for the actual logic for your game state. right? So it's just like you get photon, you get rooms, then you have to start coding the servers to do whatever messages you want to send. So you're still coding the server. This is like you don't even need to code the server. Like any kind of game, like well, not any kind of game, any game that has like a start, middle, and end. And actually, what I've added to this is now people can join in the middle of a game. Like they can
Oh,
join the
cool.
middle of the game,
Cool.
wait for like a synced air. Like I'm kind of thinking of something like a like some kind of tower defense where you come in while everyone else is synced, but you don't know. Like at the end of that state, they can send you the state, and you can start the next synced stage. If that makes sense. Like so I plan on sending other state through a totally different channel. This was designed specifically to make the input come to you as quickly as possible. Like the server itself, like is already like I'm not going to have it do anything else. It's Go. It's written in Go, and it has no other purpose other than to relay the input. So no latency on just like authenticate. Well, I'm going to need one bit of authentication because you're going to be logged into like an Elixir type server with chat, and that is going to like talk to this server and tell it, okay, the person at this IP wants to join this slot, and then like that'll be like the matchmaking server. That's a server that's gonna. I haven't even started that yet. Like this has to be all manual to log in. But what I wanted to do is actually matchmake on a different server, and then use this server purely for relaying the input, so you can get it as quickly as possible.
Okay, Nathan had a
Oh,
question there
actually,
for you
here's another
too.
good question. And
Yeah.
how long of a ping can this handle before falling apart? So this actually uses the exact same strategy as a good game piece out, where you can actually you can tune it to go into the future, like to like predict, and you can delay your own input, and you can use them together. Like you can have your input delay 3 frames and have it fast forward 3 frames, and that's essentially 6 frames. 6 frames
Okay.
of 30 frames per second is like almost 200 milliseconds, and that's pretty high, actually.
Cool.
And
Okay, that's time.
okay,
That's time. Awesome. Thank you
Very
so
cool,
much, Jason. Very, very cool stuff.
Ready.
So is John Wolf here? Is I think John is maybe forgot about his presentation tonight. That's okay. So it looks like I'm next. So Corbin, do you have the do you have the clock? Do you have the clock? Can you time me?
Sure, yeah, I totally have the clock. I'm entirely prepared for this
Okay.
situation.
All right, fantastic. So we've got 5 minutes, and I need to click on the screen. I need to share it here. What should I share? Hey, let's share this. The
Let me know whenever
update
you're
from a
ready.
few days ago. Okay, there you go. Let's go ahead and do it. Okay, 3, 2, 1, click. All right. Hey, everyone. My name is Austin Yarger. I am presenting. So you've seen, if you've been watching the last few IGDAs, you've seen this game right here. It's titled Life's a Beach. Kind of spicy name there. And the game continues to kind of progress slowly and step by step. The game is currently online. You can play it, but we're not advertising it at all. Well, aside from talking locally a little bit. And we are, because we are still working on it. We're still putting content in. We're still fixing issues and making it a deeper experience. And so what I've done is I've decided that so every week I essentially write technical reviews. And it's more like every other day. And most of it is just like me kind of writing in a journal, a Google Doc, to myself about like, okay, what are the current problems with the game? What are the current scalability issues we're facing? What are the problems I think we're going to have in a couple months? Do people like the game? What should we be changing next? Where's this all leading, right? And those conversations were really, really useful to me, right? Writing in a journal, I highly recommend it. Talking to yourself, it might sound a little bit crazy, but it just helps you think through your problems with your current projects. And so I decided that since I'm putting in that time to do that anyway, I want to try and make some of this public, if possible. We have a new arborinteractive.com, and you can see it. It is a little bit less professional and polished than the last version, but it's much easier to customize, add all the games, add other links, and it is much easier to extend as well. It's much cheaper. And so we've got these links up here. You can go read them right now. We got a lot of fun GIFs here. They got stats. Essentially, this game we have started to we're not advertising the game, but we're still getting 10 to 20 people per day playing it and visiting the site, which is pretty cool because that gives us a little taste. Sample size is an issue, but it gives us a little taste of how the game is going. What are there any trends at all? Are there positive trends? Are people reaching the title screen? Is the loading time too long? Do things look not so great? Do we get any feedback? Anyway, I encourage you to read these if you're really bored and you want to know kind of, okay, what are we worrying about now? Pretty soon we're going to have this character in the corner. This character, as part of the UI system, it's always here, except in cutscenes. Stage select, the character's there. Menus, character's there. Battle, character's right there. I really like that about the UI. You always know where to find your character. We recently started to animate them with a little bit of bobbing to kind of simulate breathing. And soon we will be implementing, Sam Olsen is our spectacular artist. We'll be implementing stuff like blinking and damage frames too. So the character will look a little bit more alive. Grand Alliance and stuff just came out. Andrew will be talking to you about that game. Spectacular game just came out, made in downtown Ann Arbor. Easily my favorite mobile game. And that's the old website right there. Looks kind of slick and polished, but there's not much to it. This is less polished, but it has a lot more stuff, and it's much better for SEO. Let's look at another thing. I'm basically I've been fighting the last few days to lower our loading times as much as possible, because currently in a desktop build, Mac or Linux or Windows, the loading time is about 15 seconds, which is pretty good. That's fine. I'm happy with that. However, on WebGL, because of some constraints of Unity's WebGL export, it takes like 40 to 60 seconds, which is just not good at all. So we have to find a way to get past that, or we need to convince the user that it's going to be worth their while. And we currently fail at both of these things. Okay. Here's a really cool chart right here. So this is what I'm calling, I think the churn chart is probably a better term. I call it the bail report. So our players bailing. So this green line up here are the number of players who visit the website, this green and blue line. This darker blue line is the number of players who reach the title screen after loading all the way through. And so you see we're losing like 60% of our players that arrive. And we don't have a big budget for advertising. Like when we do start to advertise, we cannot afford to lose all those players. And so we need to optimize, and we need to get this blue line to be closer to our blue and green line, and we can kind of measure it now. Unity Analytics is fantastic. Please consider using it. There's a lot of other discussion in here. This post is not out yet. It's not finished, but it still has a lot of stuff in it already from stuff I did last night. Going over, hey, this is what a landing page for an online game looks like. They're way better than ours. Look at all these. They're beautiful. They have a lot of information. And this is ours, okay? So that's 5 minutes. Please check out these posts, read them if you're bored, and ask me any questions, team.
Cool.
You can play the game too. Now. Thank you. You can play the game too, but it might be broken. I'm not sure. We'll have to see. It certainly is missing so many features. You can't really even level up in the game yet, which is very sad. But we'll get to it. I'm busy teaching and running stuff. Let's see here. Any questions? Okay. No questions at all. All right. Just super, super clear. So for the new website, that's a fantastic question. So in the past, our previous website was using WordPress. That's a very, very popular approach. Unfortunately, though, it is not a cheap approach, because a basic WordPress installation, you can go to WordPress.com and you can just buy like hosted solution. I think it's like $15 per month or something, their cheapest package. Or you can go to Amazon EC2 or DigitalOcean Droplet or anything else, and you can rent out a server. But I mean, that's going to be expensive too. And so we were paying like $20 a month for an Amazon EC2 small instance that was running our WordPress website. So what we do now is we use a solution called Jekyll, which is really, really great. Let's try here. There we go. Jekyll. It is essentially a static website generating tool that you just run a console command, and it basically you do all of your posts. You create all of your posts. I kid you not, in a text file. It's Markdown. So when I'm designing my posts and writing my posts, I literally just have Notepad++ open, and I'm just dumping in screenshots. I'm dumping in links to screenshots. I'm dumping in text, and it's super, super fast. But that's what I'm using. I recommend it because hosting a static website can be done without a dedicated server. You can just host it in like an an Amazon S3 bucket. Some static object storage will do you fine, and then you pay pennies per month to store that and host that stuff. It's fantastic. It also loads much faster than many WordPress installations do, so that's a little SEO boost going on. Renketsu, when do you think you'll do a release with advertising? It's hard to say. So it's very hard to say because there are a lot of different things pulling at my time right now. And some of it is predictable and some of it not so much. So there are certain things that we really have to have before we can do a release with heavier advertising. And it has to have progression. We need to have progression system in the game, as in your characters need to be able to level up, adjust their stats. Over time, you need to be able to get more powerful so that you can take on the more difficult maps that are in the game. And so that could be a couple weeks if I can find a nice block of time and I can find the right implementation and it goes well. That could take longer than that if not. But progression is definitely the big one. And then we really have to knock down those load times. I don't want to pay for advertising if we're guaranteed that 60% of the traffic that we pay for is gonna just churn immediately. That's really, really bad. So we want to get those percentages to be a lot better. And once that happens, then we can go. One of the things to remember is that this starting game, it's worth investing in because we plan to reuse these technologies and reuse these approaches for essentially the next 5 to 10 games that we make. And so, it's worth taking the time now to optimize, what is a good landing page? What kind of art assets do we need for that? Once we know, and once we have that technology, every subsequent game, we can say, okay, we need these art assets. So Art Freelancer, just create these. And we plug it into this spreadsheet and our console console command, we execute it, it packages it up for us, and boom, we got a new game just like that. So it's worth investing in this first game so that subsequent ones that use the same technology and approach and techniques, so that they're gonna work too, so that they're gonna have a much easier time. But that's the plan there. So in the meantime, though, go ahead and read. And if you ever have any questions about anything on that website, on the blog post, just send me a Discord message. Did you have to configure Unity Analytics to track the number of users that dropped before loading? Yes, I did. So in Unity Analytics, yes. So the loading screen, we did have to insert a bunch of awesome. Thank you. We did have to insert a bunch of analytics events through the loading process so that we know exactly how far each person gets through the loading process and where we're losing people. So the answer is yes. Cool. Thank you, Corbin.
Yeah, no problem. Okay, who do we have up?
Okay. So next up, we have Andrew Yang with a spectacular release this week.
Did you pull him in the lobby?
Yeah, let's see here. Move to...
Got him.
Oh, here he is.
Hey, Andrew.
Hello.
All right. Andrew, so I'll get the clock for you. You'll have 5 minutes to show us whatever you want, okay?
Okay, let me see if we can get. Can you guys hear me just fine? By the way.
Yes.
Yes.
Let me see.
Is that Yusuke?
Yeah. Let me just see if this works. Does no? It's working. Can you see the screen? No, let me see. Hey, I'm just trying to see if I can get this.
Oh, he left.
Oh,
Let's see.
okay. Any luck, Andrew? Okay.
See if the screen actually shares.
We can see something. I'm not sure what we're looking at, though.
No, it doesn't seem to be working. It won't.
We haven't started your timer yet. Don't worry.
Take your time, no rush.
Okay. I'm just trying to see how do I share this. I'm trying to share this screen, but it doesn't seem to.
It tends to work
screen
best to
and
share your
Go
desktop.
to screens.
Okay. Okay. Can you guys see it?
Awesome. Cool.
Yes, we can.
Okay.
Your
So,
webcam is
hey
off.
everyone,
However.
my name is Andrew, and I'm the head of Gaudium, anime mobile game startup. And today I kind of want to showcase our new game that we just launched, Grand Alliance. So the game we just launched on Google Play and the App Store actually on Tuesday of this week. And we're publishing our game through Crunchyroll and Viz Media. So just kind of a little background about the game. We've been working on this game for over 2 years now. And the game setting takes place in a fantasy world with industrial era technology. And it focuses on a short conflict in an empire where the emperor has been overthrown and there's civil war on the horizon between various noble houses that seek power. And the main character is Amelia, one of the last surviving princesses of the royal throne. She tries to gather new allies to kind of reunite the nation and gather the noble houses together and restore the kingdom. So a little bit about the game mechanics. So the game is an anime-style mobile RPG focused on character collection as well as customizable skills. So you can basically get a bunch of different types of skills and abilities and equip to your different heroes as a mix and match in combat. And the combat is all in real time. So a lot of mobile games, particular RPGs like turn-based games like traditional Final Fantasy, we kind of want to make ourselves different from that. So we made it almost semi-Diablo-esque, where it's like you move through map environments, but instead you fight with a squad of 3 heroes with an assortment of abilities and skills. And as you fight the battles, you collect items and rewards to kind of make your team stronger as you go throughout the game. So, yeah. And one of the few things that kind of points for our game right now is that we specialize in kind of anime art, and we work with a lot of anime illustrators throughout our game production. And we also specialize in animating live spines. So basically, we make character illustrations, and we can actually animate them to make them kind of more living in the game as well. So, yeah, so we just launched the game and we're kind of looking at our numbers. And just since we're kind of, since IGDA is more like a game development focus, I just kind of want to go through some of the brief lessons we've learned when we launched our game. So one of the things that we've learned is that for mobile, like especially like mid-core titles, before you launch your game, try to soft launch your game in a different territory and probably give yourself 3 to 6 months ahead of time, so that way you can kind of get some data, check for stability, and focus on building your KPIs, which are like retention, user conversion, and revenue per user. And always be aware that different countries have different KPIs, but it's just a good idea to do it ahead of time, especially 3 to 6 months. That way it gives you time to not only see the problems, but also be able to actually fix them per se. And then another thing, just kind of as a thing to learn, is that especially for live service games, always design your game for scalability and replayability. Because if you don't do that, you're constantly churning new assets, and it's just going to be very, very difficult to keep pace because players really consume the content in your game really fast. So some examples would be like roguelikes, endless tower modes, and those type of combat where you could keep playing over and over again. PvP is also another one because the challenge is always different player interaction, and match 3 is different, but it's kind of like you can easily build new stages and scale. And for us, for example, one thing is with our in-game combat uses chibi art, which makes it kind of affordable to make and scale, and to keep creating updates for the game as we go. For example, like new characters, new enemies, and content. So that's pretty much an overview of kind of our game and kind of the lessons learned. Since the game is already out, please check it out and download it on the Google Play and the App Store. And yeah, if you guys could give us a rating, we'll really appreciate it. So
awesome. Yeah. And that is your 5 minutes. So now we got 5 minutes of Q&A. Chat, if you have any questions, throw them into the chat.
Let me just see.
So I have a question. I'll go first. So you launched the game on Tuesday, correct?
Yes.
So that was your big launch, and it launched at midnight. Is that right?
Mm-hmm. Yes.
So how late did you stay up that first night, your team, just solving bugs and being super anxious and refreshing the statistics page and the reviews?
Well, so one of the funny parts was when we launched, like on Apple, it went out immediately, but Google, we launched the button and then it was like 4 hours before it actually showed up on the store. So there was like a little bit of panic at night during that time.
Wow. What the heck?
Yeah. So basically we're trying to figure out what was going on. I still got like 3 hours of sleep, but like our main programmer, Kevin, I don't think he slept at all that night.
Ooh.
It happens. It's something that what do you call it? Whenever you launch a game, especially live service, you gotta make sure that servers don't crash and everything is stable and stuff like that.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. I see another question about how does soft launch work? So the trick with soft launch is, let's say your game is done, ready to launch. Before you officially launch to global, you launch into a certain territory first to kind of try it out. So for example, a common one for a Western market, if you're planning to launch US as the main market, would be launching to Canada and Australia, for example, because the player behavior and culture is a little similar to US users. But if you want, say, for example, stability, you might want to launch in Southeast Asia because you can get a lot of users for relatively little to no cost organically or paid. So that way you can get a lot of users to kind of test if they get, stability problems or any sort of KPI metrics you're looking for. Mm-hmm. Any other questions? Sorry, the Twitch stream is causing it like echo.
So I have another question. So this is your first week of launch, and we talked about what the first night of launch was like. But so how has your life and your behavior and your development kind of shifted from being from the pre-launch behavior you had where you're building content, fixing bugs, to afterwards? Has your daily life changed? I'm guessing it has. And in what ways?
Yeah. So when you're before launch, you're mainly looking at kind of obviously developing the game, building the structure, the architecture, and all that throughout just basically kind of the standard procedures for developing the game, right? When you do when you actually do an official launch, after that, you're going to be looking at your metrics, and you're going to look at get more information on the player behavior. So you make sure that servers aren't down, and also what are the bugs, quality of life, And at the same time, you're also going to be trying to build new content, but build it fast enough so that players don't run out of content as well. So basically, it's a much more time pressure right after you launch, actually. Than so compared to, let's say, a more traditional release, you might feel more relaxed like once the game launches. No, the pressure goes up after you launch.
I'm so sorry.
Yeah, but it's part of the fun as well.
Yeah. All right. Chat, do we have any other questions? Okay. Awesome. Well, Andrew, thank you so much for presenting. The game's very, very fun. Yeah, chat, I hope you go out and check out the game. Google Play Store, Apple App Store. Give it a download. It's a really, really good time.
Okay.
So thank you.
Thank you.
Oh, hold on. We got one final question,
Okay.
and then we'll let you go.
Yep.
What is the cost to acquire users?
Okay, a little information about that. It depends on where you're advertising from and which target market you're advertising from. So this is and the genre of your game. So for example, if you're doing hyper casual games, you could, in theory, get users at like 50 cents, and some people could get less. Now, if you are in a mid-core and a or RPGs and stuff like that, it could be like $6 and higher. So and it really depends as well. So it's a combination of things, and also territory regions. So for example, Southeast Asia. So like let's say you're launching in Philippines. This is why soft launch for stability there is nice, because you can get people downloads for a few cents, while in the Western markets it's usually a few dollars. Mm-hmm.
Awesome.
And channels, Facebook, Google are the standard ones, though there's a lot of other options as well.
Awesome. Thank you.
Okay.
Cool. Okay. So next up, we have Josh Marshall, who is going to tell us about our story. So let's go ahead and get Josh in here.
Josh, you should be hearing us, Josh, and you should have permissions to do everything that you need to do.
Hello, Josh. Can you hear us?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Awesome.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you. If you'd like, you can turn your camera on and screen share if you'd like.
Yes. I hear you. Can you guys hear me?
I can. You're a little quiet. I'm going to turn you up a little bit.
Yes. Oh man, it's really... Sorry, I'm gonna mute that. It's really delayed.
Okay, let me know when you're ready.
All right. Am I streaming right now?
You are.
Yep,
All right,
you're
cool.
live.
So let's get this build up. All right, I'm ready. So what I've got today is called Our Story. This is a kind of a passion project that I had from years ago. And it was kind of inspired by playing Gaia Online in the forums. I used to do like the role-playing stuff, the text-based role-playing. But it got really frustrating when people would just not cooperate. Like they would just write things that completely clashed with the rest of the story. So what this is our story, and the general premise is that it's like a turn-based writing application with conflict resolution kind of built in. So the basic idea, and this what you're seeing here is not fully completed, but the basic idea is that you have like you have players and they're in a room. I'll kind of get logged in so you can have a little bit of visuals. So you've got players and they're in a given story, and you're making posts and everything. And the idea is anytime that somebody posts something that you really didn't like, you can spend this limited currency called a rewind point and request that they go back and change it. And one of the core things there is that it is very limited, so it kind of accumulates really slowly over time. And hopefully, like when you request that they change it, it kind of opens like a negotiation session where you explain like what you would want them to revise, and they get a chance to talk back. And something in 3 turns is a good number there. And then afterwards, the original poster can change it. And if the person that requested the rewind is satisfied, then they'll mark it as they're satisfied and they get some kind of reward. And so right now, kind of the rewards are not like set in stone, but really basic one is kind of inspired by Habitica, where you just get gold. And that gold, you use it to buy like special items, equipment. So if any of you have used Gaia Online, you've got like a character with equipable items that you can put on them and kind of customize your avatar. So what you're seeing right here is basically it's just a chat app at this point. It is fully functional, so I can actually type stuff in here. And it shows up there. Behind the scenes, this is all running on a Django REST API. So that post that I just put in there, I can actually go in here and find it right here. And if what story was that? I want to say that was Hero's Journey. If I log out and log in as somebody else that has Hero's Journey, you'd see it. For right now, I don't remember who else is in Hero's Journey, but I've got some other test accounts. So Anakin is in a few stories, Star Skirmishes. He's in here with Darth Vader. All right, so that's something in Star Skirmishes. I don't want to spend too long typing here.
Awesome.
So I can
60 seconds.
Cool. So I'll log in as Vader. Vader's got a different set of stories, and you can see here it shows up for him. So my ask here, I've always been really passionate about this, but one of the difficult things is as much as I would love this, and as much as I know some of my other friends would love this, I'm not really sure that there's a good core market for this type of thing. So I'm wondering if people think it's viable, and maybe what else might spice it up a little bit, because I know it's going to need a lot of juice if it's actually going to be like a sustainable thing.
So there is a Reddit thread that I get a little too obsessed with sometimes, where it's story prompts, and then people write their responses to those, and I would like to say I've never lost a weekend to that, but I have definitely lost a weekend to just reading those. And I think you definitely have a market, I would say. There's a lot of people who'd be interested in this, even just as so much as in some categories, maybe not even just a back and forth continuation of their story, but instead like a larger thread where there is the main prompt and then everybody responds to it with their takes on the prompt. Could be interesting as well. Like I really love the fact that it's shared and it's easily accessible and you can see everybody's thing and you can continue the story if you want, or you could just read and see their stories.
Yeah, I have to check that out. I actually didn't know that was a big thing on Reddit right now.
Yeah, it's been around for a long time, but it's something that like I have spent way too much time on it.
I remember during Welcome Week at Michigan on campus, they had students with big stories, right? Big pieces of paper on the diag, and you could walk up and you were allowed to draw exactly one sentence to continue the story. So figuring out how to ruin the story in the most ironic way was very enjoyable.
All right, so I got some questions. I think I'm in the Q&A section now.
Yep.
Yeah, go for it.
So somebody asks, have I tried a paper version of this concept? So I have, but it's not. I don't feel like it's that. I didn't feel like it was that useful. It's kind of hard to. I guess it could have been the group of people that I was with, but I feel like it's kind of hard to keep people engaged in it. I've done it a few times though, and like there was actually a panel at PenguinCon where we did this not for my project, but it was almost the exact same thing. And I'm like, hey, I have a project like that, and we just did it. It was a lot of fun. But I didn't really feel like I got good feedback out of it, other than it was really fun, like for me and all the other people in it. Have you thought about adding TTRPG mechanics to any stories? Yes. So Roll20 is actually a huge inspiration right now. It wasn't in the beginning, but when I saw Roll20, I was like, wow, they're doing a lot of stuff that I was thinking about doing. So I have thought about adding some, but not quite. I don't know if I'm gonna be able to um, compete very well with like Roll20, and I kind of feel like the TTRPG stuff, like I could totally make separate projects for that. Um, but yeah, I'll think more about that. See a possibility of a forum version of this. Yes. So in the future, so this is built on top of a REST API. One of the huge advantages, these are two separate technologies. One is Django Python, and the other is Unity. So Unity is just the front end. And if I go back here, this is the REST API. I can literally just like create users and post directly from here. So I can go down to the bottom, pick a user, pick a story. So the advantage is that it's really easy to just port this to any front end that you want. And so Form is definitely possible, and it's something that I've thought about because it kind of has that nostalgic Gaia Online feeling. So no other questions. So
Yep.
how much time I got left?
You've got 60 seconds.
All right. So I'll just say this. You won't be able to respond, but maybe you can talk to me after. Um, I did think about this market being really, really small, and I was kind of pessimistic. So I started thinking I could take this same technology and actually, ironically, we had the Jackbox presentation. It's like a lot of this stuff is really similar, could be used for Jackbox type of stuff, but just with more persistence. Whereas Jackbox is kind of like, just a session and it dies. Um, so I considered kind of just turning this technology into that, and then maybe revisiting our story once the technology is a little bit more developed.
Yeah. I would also encourage you to not get too discouraged about a small niche market. Companies have built entire brands off that.
Gotcha. Yeah, I'm gonna check out that Reddit, and I think I'm definitely gonna push forward more with this and get kind of the core features implemented.
Very cool, very cool.
Okay, that's it. Time. Thank you so much, Josh.
Sweet, thank you.
Okay, next up, we have Corbin and Azure Ravens Entertainment going to give us a quick 5-minute post-mortem on
Yeah.
their game that they released to mobile, Paperboy Rush.
Yeah, so this is going to be extremely impromptu. And I'm not actually sure how well it's going to go with the the live stream and trying to do all of that here. 'Cause I can't. Okay, here's what we're going to do. We're going to share my secondary monitor. Nope. Share my secondary monitor where I keep live stream. And we're going to try that.
Okay.
Stream's still going to record this. So this is going to be weird for me. But yeah, cool. All right. I don't know if you guys can see. Yeah, you guys. Let me know if the stream lags or anything like that happen. Okay? Awesome.
Yep.
So, I wanted to give a quick post-mortem on our game Paperboy Rush. We launched it a little while ago on iOS and Android. It was something we had a lot of fun with. And When we pull it up on Google Play, we had a lot of fun with it. It did relatively well. We loved the art. Sam Olsen was the primary artist on the project for us, and we just had a lot of fun with it. We released one small content update, adding in some premium characters to the game. We got some decent-ish reviews. We had some, decent traction on it. That said, it is an in-market failure, and we have ceased operations on development for it. So, and that has to do with a lot of different factors. So we didn't abandon it right away. We gave it some time, we gave it a little bit of love, and we gave it a little bit of extra spending cash. However, when we were working on this project, Azure Ravens Entertainment, the company that I run, was revenue negative for the year pretty heavily and was being self-financed. So after kind of sitting down and looking at some of the metrics, we decided to shut the project down and focus on our more profit-generating projects that we had. This project started off as a test for Facebook ads as well, so that we could run some different ads on different platforms, including Facebook, to try to nail down a monetization plan, an advertisement plan for one of our larger mobile games that we're working on that I'm hoping I can announce more on next month. But yeah, the total lifetime revenue for Paperboy Rush for in-app purchases is $26. And how much of that is friends and family is probably 100%, to be blunt. Our average retention wasn't too bad. Get a couple hundred new users pick up the game and try it out. Most of these were organic users, which is what I found to be really interesting and awesome. Our paid advertising was rather subpar. But our iOS retention was awful, which we already knew. For every paid user on Android, we got 2 to 3 organic users. For every paid user on iOS, we got 1 organic user. Whereas comparison-wise, an idle game that we have, Pet Shop Mogul, that has gotten 0 love, 0 advertisement, has had double the user acquisition, less in-app purchases, but a significantly higher day 1 retention as well. 7% day 1 retention overall, with a 5.7% there, with the average sessions per player too is also relatively low, which is interesting because that matches our sessions here. I'm kind of motoring through this just because there's a lot of info, but I'd be happy to answer anybody if they have any questions later on the cost or anything like that. For our Facebook ads, we ran a $100 Facebook ad just to test it out. When we started our ad spend and everything like that, we had our demographics all set up. We reached a pretty decent number of male to female split, which I was really happy about. So I'm really happy with that spread there. We actually had a higher woman market that we reached, but the cost for that was higher than for our male users. Our costs were absurd for our acquisition. So this is a casual game, almost a hyper casual game, and our cost per acquisition was $3.23. And if your game does not have a lot of installs already, or if you do not have a large account with Facebook already, they will not do per install billing model. It is per impression. So you pay per every impression, which will just eat your ad spend like crazy, which is really, really difficult to manage and with. We reached a total of 3,398 people.
60 seconds.
And we only had 31 installs from that. Our advertising revenue is also relatively low, with a total of $10 in advertising revenue and 6,000 impressions. So overall, like I said, this game was a financial flop. I think the total investment in the game was around $3,500, and our biggest issue would have to be replayability. The game was not, as we got further into it and as we got more play sessions, we realized that even as the development team, we were getting maybe 5 to 6 play sessions in, and then we were like, God, I'm tired and bored of this game. But at that point, we were already relatively further along. So we took a lot of the things that we learned and we've applied it to our new game, our new mobile game, and we're going to try that out. And our new hyper-casual / casual mobile game that we're working on will be our last foray into the hyper-casual and casual market if it is a flop. Then we'll focus on more live servicing and relatively more expensive to build games that could have a longer lifetime and
cool
overall process there. So yeah.
That's it. Cool. Q&A, chat. If you have any questions, please put them in. I think it goes back to Michael's presentation, but survivability, right? Like you have to kind of assume like a game's gonna flop, and then hey, look to the next one, right?
Yeah.
Needs technology.
So to answer the high organic user ratio, the art is phenomenal. That it catches eyes right away. It stands out when you type in Paperboy. Paperboy Rush pops up at the top. It's bright, it's colorful, it's fun. The art, the animations, and the character art are just phenomenal. Sam Olsen has done an amazing job on it. And where the game really lacks heavily is in the replayability and the content for that. It's an infinite runner game, and those can be wildly popular or a massive flop. And we've gotten a ton of feedback. We've made a lot of changes to it to make it more easy and accessible to play. But after talking with some individuals who are in the infinite runner and hyper casual space, we found their ad spend was significantly higher to build a continuous user base, and it's outside of my budget that I'm able to do. What type of media and creatives did you make for the Facebook ads? So we had a couple of trailers made, we had screenshots made, we had unboxings made, and we used dynamic ad placements, so Facebook would leverage all of our media to try to drive the most like user interaction. And surprisingly, we found that our pictures and like GIFs and little images of the characters' movement is what pulled the highest amount of users, what we were able to find. So our trailer was kind of a waste. But our trailer was also cheap. I spent like $20 on the trailer. Because at that point, we were budget zero on that, and so we were just kind of trying to get to launch and see what we could do at that point. See if there was any sort of pull or traction that it was worth putting in a couple hundred more. That said, we are currently running an ad session on TikTok that is scheduled to start in a day or two. I think it starts on the 26th, and that is with a $300 ad credit that TikTok provided us. We'll see how that does. If that changes things, we may relook at it. That said, I'm not optimistic on it. Not pessimistic on it either. It's just more of a realism kind of moment there. Most of our money is made through contracts anyway, so it's more of us trying to find a stable revenue source that we can focus on longevity. So, yeah.
Awesome.
But the art was phenomenal. Sam did an amazing job.
Yeah. Okay, Chad, do you have any other questions? I have a quick one. You said that your most successful kind of media for advertising was the characters in motion. Do you mean like did you make a GIF of them running around, or?
So we did GIFs of them in their movement and their jump animation, because we really got away with only having to do 2 major animations and then a crash image with a simple like idle animation there.
Yep.
But we got away with it going relatively scarce on the assets. Honestly, our animations, they're like 4 or 5 frames. It's really, really cheap done, which was good. The project's just overall budget ballooned heavily, and so
Okay, cool. All right, thank you for sharing the statistics. Right, I really enjoy the Bear financials. It's so much great knowledge. I think we have one more question.
Yeah, so any idea on how the replayability would be improved if you continue the project? So the angle of our game is rough, so it comes in at a side angle. If I could redo it with everything that I know now, we would do a top-down or backward-facing angle. To really show off the art is why we went with the angle that we went with. It makes it hard to dodge things and do stuff like that. And that's the difficult thing, right? Is creating interactive and interesting hazards that drive the level and still make it fun and challenging. What we found from a lot of our user testing is that the game felt punishing, but not challenging. And so that became our big issue, is trying to take away that punishing aspect and make it challenging and fun. And what we really ended up finding is that the angle of our screen and the way that the movement works and the way that the applied to work really just came down to it was not reusable. You reuse the tech with new art. So actually, we make a lot of our mobile games by using a base tech that we purchase. So for our hyper-casual games, we purchase a base foundation, and then we go through and we finish whatever the base foundation is, and we add in additional features. So that's how we go through it. So like if we were to make a match 3 game, we would buy a completed match 3 game with all of its core base systems done. Then we would go in and we'd overhaul those systems with new additional features. Then we would put art to that. Then we would add monetization to that. And then after that's all done, we'd have an entirely different looking game, but it cuts down on about 100 some odd engineering hours.
Awesome. Okay, that's about time. Thank you, Corbin.
Yeah, no problem. So this
all
was a
right.
good stream, yeah.
Yeah, that's just about it. Everyone, thank you for joining us so much. We had a fantastic talk from Mike and a lot of really cool projects. It's so cool to see that people are really putting in the work in this community, making cool stuff, kind of adventuring forth. And I cannot wait to see what happens over the next few months. We're gonna. Some of these games are gonna blow up. I can feel it. Okay,
Yes.
Excited to see that happen.
Make sure that if you're interested in showing off your game in the 5-minute showcase, sign up for that for next month. That registration will be live here in the next couple of days. This video will be cut and edited and posted on YouTube tomorrow. We're going to go with a new method where we're going to split the video into 2 parts. Part 1 is our speaker, which is Mike from Jackbox Games, and then part 2 will be our community showcase with the 5-minute sessions. So we'll have that split and put on YouTube later tomorrow. And yeah, if you guys have any questions or anything like that, please always feel free to message us in Discord at any time. And if you ever feel like that you love to give a talk and you're interested or passionate about something, or your game's going well, or you're working in a fun and interesting company, feel free to reach out to us. We're always looking for new speakers, and we have some slots in the beginning of next year open and available, and I'd be happy to hear from all of you.
Awesome. All right, everyone, take care. If you have any community announcements, if you have anything you want to share, post them into the general channel of the IGDA Ann Arbor Discord server. Okay? I think there's a showcase channel as well. All right?
All right, guys. I look forward to seeing you all next month.
Bye-bye.